Hey babe,
Yeah?
do you think I have to read a book this year?
Do it! It's good for you!
Alright.
Hey, what you doing?
Watching Game of Thrones?
When do you think you'll be done?
When I finish it?
The whole thing?
Every motherfudging season. Shouldn't take me too long.
2,000 years later.
Hey boy, you done watching Game of Thrones yet? Have you started watching Game of Thrones yet?
No? Why?
Maybe you should paint those Song of Ice and Fire minis instead.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay.
What's happening, hobby people? Welcome to episode 2 of the Dry Paint Pot Holiday Special. Now, if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, I'll drop a link up top. Throw a link up top. There will be a link up top to the first episode. I highly suggest you check it out. It'll explain what we're doing today. So before we jump into things, I just want to let you know that my Hobby Hotspots affiliate link does work with their holiday sale. So if you want to save even more money on a new set of brushes, use the code below and it'll give you an extra 10% off of whatever they're selling the brushes for at the moment. So let's jump right into things today and just get at it. So Santa was going to wrap this week's present, but it was way too big and wrapping paper is very expensive. So this week's gift, oh my god, it's so heavy. Whew. This week's gift is for the Song of Ice and Fire Minis community. Yes, we are finally getting into it. I've had many of you ask me after I did my unboxing, when are you going to do a tutorial? What are you going to paint? What's the first thing you're going to knock out? It's a Stark Sworn Sword. We're painting it up today, and I'll show you how I did it. Now, as I just mentioned, I've already done an unboxing on this, so I'm not going to go over everything about the game. If you want to know about it, I'll also put a link up top to that unboxing, and I go into great detail about the company and the game itself and all the contents in the box, because today we're just going to be focusing on the Stark Sworn Sword. Now, I was tempted to jump straight to the mountain, not because of my favorite character, but because he is the coolest, in my opinion, the coolest looking mini in the entire box. But the Stark Sworn Sword I thought was a little better, only because there are so many of them in the box. There's, I think, 2 trays of Sworn Swords, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, two trays of Sworn Swords, and even like the Riders and all the other models, they kind of have like the same kind of look to it. So you can take this tutorial and really use it for all the other Stark models that you have. Now, I will be doing a tutorial on the Lannister minis a little later, but one thing at a time. And I've also had a lot of you ask me if I've played yet, and I did. I played my very first game recently. I freaking love the game. It is so fun. I wasn't sure how I'd feel using movement trays because I jumped into Warhammer in 8th edition. I didn't have movement trays, nor did I need it with my Death Watch. So I thought it would be a little weird to be using movement trays, but it was not. Actually, it was very nice to kind of think of units as large squads, and it was very organized and kept things fast moving. Once you just move the tray, know your actions, everything kind of just flew by. So a very fun game. I can definitely do a maybe like a playthrough if you'd like to see that, or I could just keep up with the tutorials because I have so many minis in that box to paint. Now I'm not going to waste any more of your time, so without further ado, let's get this Warren sword painted up. Alright, so I started things off by priming the model gray. While I usually prime most things black, I knew that I was going to use a lot of lighter colors like on the face and blue cloth, so I went gray because it's easier to cover up. If you don't believe me, just try painting yellow over black primer. It's a nightmare. Once the model was primed, I went ahead and painted the tabard with a mixture of Fenrisian gray and Lothern blue. I added just a pinch of Lothern blue in my mixture, but you can go ahead and add as much as you like if you really want this blue to be bright and stand out. Now there's this cloth on the leg that is between the chainmail and the boot, and on the arm that's between the tabard and the chainmail. I painted these areas in Steel Legion drab. So just like last week's video, I'm painting this model in the same way that I batch paint. So what that means is I do all of the base colors first, then I wash, and I finish things up with a few highlights. This model is one of over 100 that came in the starter set, so I can't afford to spend multiple days on it. With a light brown cloth done, I went for some Rhinox hide on the boots. Now I love this color because once it's washed, it gets so dark that it almost looks black, but it still has a nice cool tone brown to it. I don't always have every color that I need, so I'm always mixing paints. Some people worry that mixing paints leads to inconsistent colors throughout an army, but so long as you write down what you're mixing and you have a reference, you should be fine. When it came to painting the shield, I went for a mixture of Steel Legion drab and Rhinox hide. I used about a 1-to-1 mix of both colors, and that seemed to work nicely. When it comes to one of these mixes, feel free to play around with the colors and make it however you'd like. It was next time to paint the chainmail, so I decided to use Vallejo's alcohol-based metallic silver. Now if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm always talking about this stuff because it's by far some of the best metallic paint out there. Check out the link up top if you want to watch a tutorial that I made like a million years ago on how to use this stuff because it's not like normal Citadel metals. The reason why I went for Vallejo over a water-based silver like Ironbreaker is because the Vallejo silver actually reflects light. It has a shine like no other metallic paint out there, and I wanted this to contrast the silver that I later put on the pauldron and the helmet. Since the chainmail touches both the pauldron and helmet, I didn't want them to be the same shade of silver. To switch things up, I went with Leadbelcher, and I'm glad I did. Leadbelcher is not only darker than Vallejo silver, but it had a different finish, which allows these parts to really stick out. I made a few mistakes painting the sword. I chose a handful of different silvers and I put them all over the wrong places. But luckily, by going light with my layers, I was able to repaint the sword without losing much detail. Now Starks aren't as luxurious as Lannisters, so the sword is plain and simple. It's just silver. No gold guard or accents, just silver. I used Vallejo silver on the blade, Leadbelcher on the grip, and Vallejo white gold on the guard and pommel. I know that white gold isn't silver, but it's very close. It just has that tiny tint of yellow in there. Let's knock out a few things at once because I don't have much to say about them. For the leather straps, I wanted to use a new shade of brown, and for this I mixed Steel Legion drab and Doombull brown to add a bit of red to the color. While I was working on those straps, my brush just randomly broke, just out of nowhere, but it was nothing that I couldn't fix with a little bit of glue. To paint the beard, I mixed Jokero orange and Doombull brown. With the face being so small, it's important to be very careful with this step and try not to get any of that mix on the skin. I jumped ahead to painting the direwolf on the shield and chest with Abaddon black, but I should have waited because I forgot that I planned on dry brushing the shield a bit later. Luckily, with the wolf being black, it's very easy to touch up and go over. Since this is not a character, I don't plan on going all out, so I decided to keep the skin very simple. I first started with a base coat of Kislev flesh, mixed with Screaming Skull and just a hint of White Scar. When I want faces to look really nice, I usually start with a dark base coat and work my way up in color. I avoid washing the skin and instead tint it with glazes. But for this model, I'll simply be laying down the base coat, washing it, and adding a few highlights on the cheeks and nose. So here's the dry brushing I was talking about. I decided to dry brush the shield with pure Steel Legion Drab. Since this color was part of the mix that was used for the shield, this dry brushing will look very natural and complement things nicely. The next step is my favorite, because almost everything except the face and hands get a heavy wash in Nuln Oil. This wash brings all of the colors together, it darkens the recesses, and it really just brings the model to life. I usually say don't go too heavy with wash, but in this case, just go at it. Just don't dip your model or anything crazy like that. For those of you who don't know what dipping is, it's freaking insane. You take your model and you literally dip it into the wash. Do not do that. Don't think about it. Don't do it. With some pure Fenrisian gray, I went back and lightly painted over the raised surfaces on the tabard. Remember that these highlights are optional and can be as fancy or as simple as you'd like them to be. The skin also got a very light highlight of Screaming Skull just on the nose and cheeks. The key to jumping up in color from our washed base coat to such a bright highlight is keeping your layers very thin, so I applied a few coats and then did the same with some Jokero orange on the beard. I didn't want to spend too much time on highlighting the boots, so I did just a bit of dry brushing with a mix of Steel Legion Drab and Rhinox Hide. The same goes for the leather straps. I didn't want to spend too much time on them, so I added a bit of white scar to the base color and only added color to the raised parts of the straps. The very last bit of dry brushing was done on the pauldron and helmet. Leadbelcher is already a dark silver, and after washing it in Nuln Oil, it becomes even darker and dingier. To add a quick but sharp highlight, I dry brushed on some Runefang silver just to one side of the helmet and to the center of the pauldron. If you followed along with this tutorial, all you have to do next is base the model to match the theme of your army and you're all set. I would like to give a massive shout out to my patrons Leandrist, Che Phillip, CK, The Dark Path, Came From The Moon, and $2 Sucky Sucky. Thank you all so very much for your support. And it was actually this morning that I got an update from YouTube giving me, I think it was like my year in review, and it just gave me all these stats of my channel. And I think there was a total of like 100 likes on all the videos and somewhere around like 3,000 watched hours, and it blew my mind. It was crazy. I saw that I've been doing this for like 255 days, I think, 253. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And all of those numbers would have been zero if it weren't for you. If it wasn't for your support with watching these videos, you know, asking questions in the comment, helping me out, telling me what's working, what's not working. I owe it all to you. So thank everyone for all of your support. And I look forward to the next year. Well, this year's not over yet. We've got two more weeks to post some videos, but I look forward to 2021 and all the videos that'll be made that year. So thank you guys so much. If you want to help support the channel, I'll drop a link to my Patreon down low. And if you just want to hang out and talk about the hobby, I'll drop a link to my Discord down low too. Now let's check out this week's viewer submissions. This blacksmith is by CCrazy420, and I am so very impressed by the highlights on this skin. CCrazy is one of my patrons, and we actually did a one-on-one lesson not too long ago on highlighting skin, and he's really blown out the water. He has done such a great job with this. The wear and tear on the anvil is great. The blend on the sword is looking amazing, and this is just really coming together. I'm very impressed, and I can't wait to see it complete. And these converted aggressors are by Minimal Tabletop, and I'm not surprised. He always does an amazing job with his conversions. But God, look at the amount of guns on these things. They're like walking repulsors. It's just disgusting, but in the best way, of course. Now, I love the missile pod that was built on top. I'm not sure what you use there, but I could use a couple for mine, so please let me know what you did there, because I'd love to save a little money and not have to buy a bunch of secondhand bits. And all in all, these things look great. I can't wait to see them painted up. Now wash your brushes, clean your paint pots, and keep on painting.
Action.
How's the lighting like this?
Good.
Okay.
Action.
Yeah, but like, do you really think? Okay. No, that's dumb.
Oh, I.
Tell me when.
Action.